Recently, during the election times, we are witnessing a lot of articles on Kutniti Watch where they are labeling that how the score of democracy in India is constantly downgrading. We are also witnessing some reports which categorize India's democracy to the same of Pakistan and Niger.
But who's behind these reports?
The one which I'm talking about is the VDEM report. It has been funded with Open Society Foundation and External Affairs Ministry of Sweden and a few Nordic countries. So what should we learn from Denmark and Sweden?
So all these reports, what they measure mostly is the election process by itself, is how you vote for someone, which is an important part of democracy, but not the only part. And honestly, all these European countries who publish these reports, they are good. They have good election process. It's very clean, very transparent. I'm not saying that India is bad. For sure, India should not be where it is portrayed today. India should be much higher. They have small problems in India, but not at that level. We are not sorry at the level of some, countries that have a coup d'etat right now in Africa. But again, they measure something which is the election process. But why they do that? Because that's the only thing they can brag about. The problem being, this part of the democracy is clean, but the other part of the democracy is, do you elect someone who has power? And European Union, they elect people who have no sovereignty, who have no power. Thus, they are not democracies. You can have the best process in the world to elect someone, but if the person basically doesn't rule your country, is not the real ruler of your country, you are not in a democracy.
Just a second. How can you say that European countries are not democracies?
But no, they are not democracies. Citizens of European Union countries, they vote for the head of state, for her head of state, who has no power. These guys have absolutely no power. I'll explain you why. There are many reasons, but let's take the four main reasons. So, reason number one, I am a head of state of a sovereign country. I should be able to have a financial and monetary policy. So what does it mean? As a head of state, I should be able to decide what the rate of my currency should be. So if I want to import more, I can increase the value of my currency. If I want to export more, which is the case of what we have in India, I can lower the value of my currency. I need to be able to manage the inflation. I need to be able to decide how much foreign reserve exchange I want to keep in my country or not. I want to be able to decide about the rates for my banks. So all these things are very important. It's a foundation of a sovereign country to have, a control on its money, and be able to create more money or emit less money, for example. In India, we have an institution for that. It's the Reserve Bank of India. It's under Ministry of Finance, and it's quite a straightforward process. It's managed by Indian government, right? But in Europe, it's not the case. So there are 27 states in the European Union. Most of them use the euro, and all of them are under the regulation for finance, under the regulation of Central Bank of Europe. So you could imagine, maybe, each citizen in Europe has a right to vote and decide who will manage that for them. No. There is a list. The European Commission, which is not a democratically elected body, come with a list of people, and they say, okay, you can choose among this list of people. And the head of states of Europe, 27 people, choose inside this list. What's the name for that? It's a technocracy. It's purely a technocracy. It's not a democracy at all. Second thing, if I am a sovereign head of state in my country, I should be able to create a legal framework, basically to create laws and modify them if I want. So in Europe, you have dozens and dozens of institutions, but there are four main ones. The biggest one is the European Commission. Then you have the European Council. Then you have the Council of European Union. Names are very similar. And then the European Parliament. The first three are in Brussels, and they are not democratically elected. They work through representation. The fourth one is in Strasbourg, which is in east of France, and it is democratically elected. That's true. The citizens of Europe can vote for the member of parliaments of the European Parliament, right? The problem is they have no power. They are always shown as a tool of democracy, but it's a parliament that can't make laws. They can just amend them. They can modify them. They can add some modifications on them, but they cannot create laws. And more than that, they can't even touch the foundations of Europe, because everything that was, decided before that is untouchable by them. They have no power here. And Europe had a referendum in 2005, so all the citizens of Europe were able to vote for the constitution. So we asked the citizens of Europe, do you want a constitution? And people said, no, we don't want a constitution in Europe. We want to keep sovereignty at our country level. We don't want to give so much power to the Union. So what the European Commission did, they said, okay, you don't want it, so what do? We do it. In 2007, they took the text, they changed the name, it's called the Pact of Lisbon, and now it's a Constitution of Europe. So it's a clear failure of democracy here. You know, like you ask the citizens of people, do you want something? They said no, and then you do it. It's just incredible. And on top of that, the European Commission, there is a layer that no one talks about. The biggest lobby sphere in the world is Washington, D.C. But the second one is Brussels. There are 32,000 people working at the European Commission. There are between 25 to 48,000 lobbyists in Brussels. And all the people working at the Commission are not regulators. A lot of them are cooks. They are making, you know, like they are managing the IT infrastructure or whatever. But I can tell you that these 30 whatever thousand lobbyists, all of them are lobbyists. All of them are putting pressure on the government of Europe. So, and the funny part about these lobbyists is most of them are not from Europe. The main lobby of Europe is USA. You know, like they are like Microsoft or Google have much more lobbyists in Brussels than any European company. So where is the democracy there? The third point, if you're a sovereign head of state, the third thing you want to manage yourself are your borders. A state is defined by borders recognized by other states. In India, it's a daily topic. The border with Pakistan, the border with China, everything. We talk about that a lot. It's a matter of sovereignty of a government. And people sometimes make fun of European countries that, oh, they have so many migrants, why they let these people come and everything. Because they can't. They cannot stop them. Because the borders of Europe are not managed by European countries. In the 80s, a small group of countries created an organization called Schengen. And the goal was basically to have no borders between them. It was fine, it was a small group. But then the European Union took over this Schengen organization, and now it's managed at a European level. And basically, you have no borders inside the states of Europe. And they created an organization which is not very famous outside Europe. It's called Frontex. So Frontex is the meta police organization that manages the border of Europe. So as a head of state, even if I'm democratically elected by my people, that's what happened to Meloni in Italy, for example. She was totally against she was not against immigration, she was against mass immigration. She said, I'll stop it and everything. She came into power and she did nothing. Just because she can't. She has no power there. The fourth point is, if I am a sovereign head of state, I want to manage myself, my defense, and my geopolitics. So I want to be able to have my alliances. I need to be able to do a war or not do it. And I want to be able to protect my country with an army. Today, there is no body in Europe who's managing that. So Europe relies on another organization, which is not a European organization, which is NATO, which is controlled by USA. So basically, the whole policy of defense in Europe is totally controlled by NATO. Inside Europe, there is only one country with a big army, which is France. They have a nuclear bomb. They are member of United Nations Security Council, and they have a huge army and very professional, deployed everywhere in the world. So France can always play a bit on the side, but the other countries, if NATO says, okay, I want you to go to Iraq or Libya or whatever to wage war against people you have no interest with, you have to do it. If you don't do it, you can have big problems. And even tomorrow, if Europe is attacked, you could believe, okay, these 27 countries made an alliance, so if they are attacked, they'll decide what happened to them. No, that's not how it works. If Poland is attacked by Russia tomorrow, that's the scenario that, you know, like everyone wants to give you in Europe, it won't be Brussels who will decide, it will be Washington. Because the NATO treaties are above the European treaties. So they decide about the defense policy of Europe. And on top of that, there is a huge lobbying these days by Germany to get a seat at the United Nations Security Council. Germany has no army, they have no nuclear bomb, but they want the seat. So what they are trying to do, they are asking France to change their seat from a French seat, a sovereign nation seat, to a European seat that will, you know, like englobe all the countries of Europe. So, and right now, Macron is pushing into that direction. He said he's open to discussion with Germany and everything with the Union. So it will go there. And it will be, again, there will be not one sovereign military country in Europe.
So USA will be having 2 seats then, indirectly.
Yeah, exactly. So you see, I took these 4 pillars, but there are many, many more. At the end, these presidents have no power.
So, what is the purpose of having free and fair elections if your state is not sovereign at all?
It gives you an illusion of democracy, but at the end, let's use the Indian terminology. We would call them, if they were in India, they would be chief ministers. That's what they are. The presidents of Europe are chief ministers. They can open a museum, they can change some local taxes, they can change the color of that wall, they can do some stuff, but like a chief minister. So you have power as a chief minister, but you're not a head of state. Chief minister in India doesn't change the borders, the laws, like the geopolitics of the country, the finance or everything. They are chief ministers. That's the only thing they are. So there is no, democracy in Europe. You just elect a glorified mayor, a glorified chief minister. That's it. And many things that we do in India on a daily basis, because we are a real democracy. For sure, we can have some issues there and there, but at least our government is sovereign. That looks so basic for us would be impossible over there. I'll give you an example. We had this big thing of Make in India. And all big countries in the world have similar kind of policy. It's not something new in India. You promote the Make in India, you want to promote your own country. You want to do it in Europe? It's forbidden. Article 30 of the European treaties. You cannot promote your own economy. It's incredible.
Indeed.
And you see, as Indians, we like ourselves to make fun of Pakistan being a totally failed democracy, which is true. But at the end, they still hold a bit of sovereignty in their country, which is not even the case of a country like Denmark. So when you look at it, it's quite crazy. But we should make another video. I can do a video where we explain how European Union was created by USA after the Marshall Plan and what are the implications there. Because people don't realize how, there is a lack of sovereignty, global sovereignty in Europe. And the problem is when you use the word sovereignty, it looks like a big word, but an easy way to remember what it is to use the opposite. And the opposite of sovereignty is
Slavery.